Everyone in the neighborhood knew Big Chief, the man who loved fast cars and quiet nights. But no one ever understood why his garage was always locked, sealed tight like a mystery no one was allowed to solve. It wasn't just a normal garage. It was big, heavy, and built like a fortress, with thick metal doors that made a loud echo every time the wind touched them. People often walked past it slowly, hoping to hear something, anything, coming from inside. Kids made up stories about what could be hiding in there, and even adults whispered strange theories when they thought no one was listening. Some said it was just car parts, maybe an old racing engine he didn't want to throw away. Others believed there was something much deeper, something personal, maybe even painful. But Big Chief never explained. He smiled at people on the street, waved kindly. But when someone asked about the garage, his face would change. He'd quickly look away or give a short answer like, "Nothing special in there," and the conversation would end. Over time, his silence became louder than words. People started to notice how he'd sit outside near the garage, sometimes for hours, staring at the doors as if something behind them was calling him, or maybe haunting him. There were nights when lights flickered inside, just for a moment, like a secret trying to escape. But still, no one was allowed in. Not his friends, not his family, not even the people who worked with him. And that made it even more strange. Why would a man so open and friendly keep just one part of his life completely locked away? Why did he seem both proud and afraid of what was inside? It wasn't about the garage anymore. It was about what it meant to him. It was like a part of his heart was hidden behind those doors. A part that was too hard to show, too painful to face, or maybe too powerful to release. And so, the curiosity grew. People didn't just want to see what was inside, they wanted to understand it. They wanted to know what could matter so much that it needed to be hidden from the world. What story was he protecting? What truth was locked away with those bolts and chains? And most of all, what would happen if someone finally opened it? That question lingered like smoke in the air, never fully seen, never going away. Until the day everything changed, and the doors finally opened, revealing a truth no one was ready for. It happened on a quiet morning when the air felt different, like something big was about to happen, and no one could explain why. The neighborhood seemed still, almost too still, until someone noticed the garage door was no longer locked. The heavy chains were gone, the padlock missing, and the door slightly open like it was waiting to be pushed. Word spread quickly, and within minutes a few people had gathered, all of them looking at each other, unsure of what to do. Some were excited, others nervous, but they all shared the same feeling something important was about to be revealed. For years, they had wondered what Big Chief was hiding, and now the answer was right in front of them. No one saw who unlocked it, and Big Chief himself was nowhere to be found. That made everything even more mysterious. Did he finally decide to let the world see what was inside? Or did someone break in without his permission? As one brave neighbor slowly pulled the door open, a loud creak filled the air, like the building itself was groaning after being silent for so long. Dust floated into the sunlight, making it hard to see at first. Everyone held their breath. They expected tools, maybe a car or two, but what they saw made them take a step back. It wasn't just a garage. It felt like a place trapped in time, untouched for years, and filled with things that didn't belong in just any workshop. The air smelled old, like memories that had been locked away for far too long. A single light bulb hung from the ceiling, barely working, flickering like it wasn't sure it wanted to shine on what was hidden. There were car parts, yes, but they weren't just thrown around. They were arranged carefully, almost like pieces of a puzzle that only Big Chief understood. And then they saw something that stopped them in their tracks. A photo frame resting on a shelf, covered in dust, showing a younger version of Big Chief with someone no one recognized. The smile on his face in that photo was different, full of life, full of something lost. That moment sent chills through the room. It was clear now that this garage was not just for machines. It was a secret place built from love, loss, and maybe even guilt. The silence grew heavier as more questions filled their minds. Who was the person in the photo? Why was it hidden here? Why had Big Chief locked away this part of his life for so many years? And most of all, why was it finally open now? The garage had been a mystery, but what was inside felt like the beginning of a much deeper story. One that touched the heart more than anyone expected. And they hadn't even seen the most shocking part yet. Something was still waiting, buried under layers of time and silence, and it was about to change everything they thought they knew about Big Chief. As the sunlight slowly pushed its way through the dust-filled air inside the garage, people began to see more than just car parts and old tools. What they saw started to feel like something much more personal, something almost sacred. It was as if the space wasn't just a garage, but a frozen moment in time that had been carefully kept untouched, like a hidden memory that Big Chief didn't want to let go of. Every item in the room seemed to be in its exact place. Not one thing was randomly thrown around. There was an old race car parked in the middle, not shiny or new, but clearly important. The paint was scratched, and the wheels looked tired, but there was something powerful about it. Something that made you feel like it had lived through stories too heavy to tell. On the car's dashboard, there was a necklace hanging gently, the kind you don't leave by accident. Right beside it sat a dusty helmet with a name written on it that no one recognized. And suddenly, people realized this wasn't just Big Chief's past, it was someone else's life too, someone who once meant everything to him. The walls were covered with photos, most of them old and fading, showing racing events, small victories, smiling faces, and one person who kept appearing in every single picture, always next to Big Chief, always close. But no one in the room could name that person. The silence in the garage became deeper, almost heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding an emotion. There was a strange feeling in the air, like love, pain, and memory were all mixed together. And the more people looked, the more they felt like they were walking through someone's broken heart. On a small table near the back, there was a letter sealed in an envelope, untouched, like it had been waiting for years to be read. No one dared to open it, but everyone stared, wondering what message was hidden inside. Was it a goodbye? A confession? A memory too painful to say out loud? The longer they stayed in that space, the more they understood that this garage was not a place for engines and machines. It was a quiet museum of someone's most personal moments, carefully protected by Big Chief for reasons no one fully understood. What hurt the most was that he had done all of this in silence, carrying this secret alone for years, never asking for help, never saying a word. Why did he keep it all hidden? Why didn't he ever speak about the person in the pictures? And why now? Why had the door finally opened? People left the garage that day with more questions than answers, their hearts heavy and their minds spinning. Because what they saw wasn't just a room full of things, it was a window into a man's soul, and they could feel there was still more to be revealed, something even deeper still waiting to be found. In one quiet corner of the garage, far from the car and old photos, something unusual caught their eyes, a small wooden shelf covered in a soft cloth that looked untouched for years. And when someone gently pulled the cloth away, they found something that made the room feel even colder. It was a collection of personal items, but not just random things. Each one seemed to tell a private story. There was a child's toy car, worn and faded, with a name written underneath in tiny letters that no one recognized. And beside it was a pair of racing gloves, much smaller than Big Chief's hands. People looked at each other, confused, trying to understand what this meant. Then they noticed a stack of notebooks, carefully tied with string, and one of them had a date that went back almost 20 years. A few pages were loose, showing drawings of race cars and handwritten messages that looked like they came from a young person, full of dreams and passion. It was clear now that this space wasn't just about Big Chief's past, it was about someone he had loved. Someone who had once shared that dream with him, and then suddenly disappeared from all the stories he ever told. Right above the shelf, hanging on the wall, was a single photograph that looked different from all the others. It wasn't from a race. It wasn't about fame or cars. It showed Big Chief holding a little boy, both of them smiling, covered in dirt and grease, their hands holding the same tiny wrench. The photo felt heavy, like it carried a truth no one ever knew. And then the pieces began to fall into place. This wasn't just a garage. It was a space built out of grief, filled with the pieces of a life that was once full, then broken. Big Chief had built his racing legacy with the world watching. But this corner was the part he couldn't share, the one he kept locked away in silence. Why had he hidden this child from everyone's memory? What had happened to him? And why had Big Chief never said a single word, even to his closest friends? The answers were still hidden, buried under years of silence and pain. But this discovery opened a new door, not just into his past, but into his heart. It was a heartbreaking reminder that behind every strong face, there can be a world of sorrow kept quiet. People stood in that corner, not just looking at old items. They were standing in the middle of a love story cut short, a dream that never got to the finish line, and a father's silent promise to never forget. And now, as the secrets began to show themselves, the need to know the full truth only grew stronger. What else had Big Chief hidden, and what were they about to uncover next? Just when they thought they had seen the most emotional part of the garage, someone noticed a small crack in the wooden wall near the back, a strange line that didn't match the rest of the panels. At first, it looked like nothing, just old wood starting to split. But when one person pushed on it gently, the panel moved slightly, revealing a hidden space behind it. Everyone stood still as the piece was carefully pulled away, and what they saw next made their breath catch. Inside was a small, secret compartment, dark and dusty. And inside it was a box that looked old and worn, with deep scratches on the lid like someone had gripped it tightly long ago. The box didn't have a lock, but it felt heavy, like it carried years of silence and truth. When they opened it, they found a journal wrapped in a soft, faded cloth. The edges of the pages were yellow, the ink was smudged in places, and some parts had dried tear marks. No one knew whether to read it or leave it closed. But curiosity slowly won. As they opened the first few pages, they realized this wasn't just a diary. It was a letter to someone who was no longer there. Each word was written with emotion, pain, and love. Big Chief had written about days he never talked about, memories he kept buried deep, and feelings he could never say out loud. He spoke of a boy who used to call him Dad, of shared dreams, racing lessons in the backyard, and a tragic accident that took everything away in one single moment. He wrote about how he tried to move on, how he smiled in front of the world, how he became a champion on the track but lost the real race in life. The words felt raw and honest, like they had been trapped inside him for years, waiting for a moment when someone would finally hear the truth. The journal was not just a story, it was a confession, a goodbye, a memory, and a message to anyone who would find it. People reading those pages felt like they were stepping into his heart, feeling every crack, every regret, and every piece of love that never faded. It became clear why the garage had stayed locked for so long. It wasn't just hiding things, it was protecting the last pieces of a life that had been shattered. And now that it was open, everything felt different. People had known Big Chief as a racer, a winner, a man with fire in his soul. But through these pages, they now saw the side of him that had been quietly hurting. The man who lived each day with a smile on his face and a storm inside his heart. And still, one question remained: was this the end of the story? Or was there one more secret waiting to be found in the final room of the garage?